J.D. Vance attacking Tim Walz and campaigning outside police headquarters in Minneapolis, the headquarters that was burned down during protests in the wake of George Floyd's death. Vance holding this event as he's confronted about a private email in 2014 where he said, quote, "I hate the police." Now, in this email, which he sent to a law school classmate and a friend, Sophia Nelson, he says, quote, "I hate the police. Given the number of negative experiences I've had in the past few years, I can't imagine what a black guy goes through." Now, Vance was asked about this email by the New York Times' Lulu Garcia-Navarro, who, of course, viewers of this show know well. And he said that this was really just about one police officer in San Francisco who did not help him after his wife's suitcase filled with priceless items was stolen from their car.
When we first moved, there was a break-in the car that I had, and it was stupid. I shouldn't have left her suitcase in the car to begin with, but I did. And it had a ton of like completely priceless things. I'm not talking about priceless as in we paid a lot of money, but like the necklace her grandmother gave her that she bought in India that she gave her on like the morning of our wedding. Things like that were stolen. I think it's very ridiculous for the media to say, well, JD used to be like a defund the police guy because in a private email I expressed some frustration about a distinctive police officer. Come on.
All right, Sophia Nelson is out front with me now, Vance's close friend and Yale Law School classmate. I'm sorry, Sophia. So, you did share that full email with us. That's from 2014, where Vance says, "I hate the police." Literally, he writes, quote, "I hate the police." But I think context matters so much here, Sophia. You got that email, you said, during the unrest in Ferguson, Missouri, which was after Michael Brown, the 18-year-old black man, was shot and killed by a police officer. So he said those things. He said, "I hate the police. I can't imagine what a black guy goes through." And then in the email, which you shared with us, he continues to say, "I love the body camera movement and anything that puts cops back in the mindset of service and protection instead of control and coercion." And look, it's a thoughtful email. That's what he told you. Now he's telling Lulu that it was all because he had been robbed in San Francisco, and there was one cop who he felt was not empathetic or something. I know it upset you to hear what he said to Lulu. Tell me what you think happened there.
Well, thanks for having me back, Erin. Good evening. He lied. He's shown a comfort with lying. He's lied about his stance on abortion. He's lied about immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, and he's lying about the results of the 2020 election. In the grand scheme of things, I guess this isn't that important of a lie, but I think it shows his comfort with lying in order to amass money and power. That email was clearly about police's abuse against African-American men in this country, and he was showing an empathy and an understanding of that problem. And I'm sorry that he was a victim, him and his wife were a victim of crime. I remember when that happened, and I expressed my sympathies then. That happened well after he sent this email when he moved to San Francisco.
So, I'm sorry, and you said that happened after the email?
Yes. So we had this email exchange where he said, "I hate the police," and was expressing concern about police using power and control over black men unnecessarily and not being concerned with their public safety function. And he sent that email in 2014. Then a few years later, he moved to San Francisco, and that experience happened where, again, I'm sorry that him and his wife experienced that. No one should experience that.
Right. No, of course. But it is very significant. What you're saying is that his thoughts about the body camera movement and police and black men were all, that whole email, and "I hate the police," as he writes in the email to you, was sent years before the incident that he told Lulu was the driving factor of that email. I think that matters. The timeline does matter. And I want to play a little bit more of his explanation for the email as he said it to Lulu. Sophia, listen to this.
I was frustrated at the police. I fired off a frustrated email to a friend. And again, this is why I think it's like a violation of trust is, do I think that that is at all representative of my views of the police? Do I think it was representative of my views of the police writ large in 2016 or 2014 or whenever I sent that email? No, of course not.
So when he talks about, he thinks it's a violation of trust, I presume he's talking about sharing the email. It's kind of unclear. I guess he's talking generally about his relationship with you. What do you say to that, Sophia?
Well, first of all, if it had been an email like he's describing and he was just venting his frustrations about a specific incident, I never would have shared it. And I don't think the New York Times ever would have published it because it wouldn't be newsworthy. I took a long time to decide whether or not to share my correspondence with JD with the public. And I filtered out a lot of things, personal things, things that were about our personal lives, and I didn't share those because I don't think the American people has a right to know that. But when you're running to be vice president of the United States, your stances on public policy matters are important to the public, and I think should be part of the public record. And so this was a conversation that we were having about police brutality and the police mistreatment of Black men in this country, and he expressed very distinct views on that. And now he's running on a platform anathema to that. And so I shared these emails because he expressed lots of views that are completely contradictory to the platform he's running to now. And I think that is a matter of public import and something the American people have a right to know about, which is very different from the lie he's telling to the New York Times about just being frustrated with an individual officer, which I agree with him. If that had been the email, I mean, that's not newsworthy. That's not something that anyone should pay attention to.
Right. Well, as you said, you have empathy for that moment. That would have been a frustration in a moment, but that's not what this was.
Of course.
He did talk about your friendship, and I have to say, Sophia, talking to you so many times, I know that there's a great sadness in you too about what happened between the two of you, and you've talked about how he supported you and when you underwent your gender-affirming surgery, and he came and visited you in the hospital. He was there for you. He did talk about your friendship, and I wanted to play a big part of that.
I'm not going to sit here and criticize Sophia. I love Sophia. I am very sad about what happened between me and Sophia. I think that going back 2013, 2014, she's my friend. She's transgender. I didn't fully understand it. I just thought, I love this person and I care about her.
He loves you and he cares about you, and he says he still does, and he feels sad. I guess just to be very direct about it, is there a part of you that feels the same way, Sophia?
Of course. No, I'm sad about the loss of our friendship, but I think, I think I have a different definition of love than JD. JD has referred to queer people as groomers. He's referred to the surgery I received as gruesome. And he's implied through text messages and his public policy stances that those who support parents, medical providers, and their children making private decisions about what the best medical care is for that individual child are engaging in child abuse. And he called it chemical castration in that interview with the New York Times. And that's not what it is. It is medically researched, well-established, life-saving care. And it's care that needs to be made on an individual basis between a parent, a doctor, and a child. It's a private decision, and every parent is going to make a different decision, right? No one's trying to get anybody to access specific types of care. No one's pressuring anyone to do that. But to take away life-saving options from children and their parents, private decisions that they make with them and their doctor, that to me is dangerous. And we've seen the catastrophic consequences of that in the context of abortion. Women bleeding out in emergency room parking lots. I don't think we want to repeat those mistakes. And to me, when you're trying to strip me of my civil and political rights, this is a man who supports repealing marriage equality that would take away one of my rights. That's not what love looks like to me in action. So I have a great deal of care for JD, a lot of fond memories. I remain open-hearted about the future when it comes to JD. But when I love someone, I don't try to strip them of their rights. I don't imply that they're engaged in child abuse for trying to protect access to gender-affirming care for transgender people. And so I think we just have a different definition of what love looks like.
Sophia, I appreciate your time. Thank you.